Since WrestleMania 40, Cody Rhodes has been the WWE Champion, the one who dethroned Roman Reigns. He has completed his story, he has succeeded in his quest, but is his reign a success so far? Have these past few months lived up to his years of waiting before becoming champion? Get comfortable, grab a coffee, and let's discuss all of this together.
You are on the Wrestling Paradise.
Highlights and rants about Cody Rhodes' reign. Let's get started.
Finished the story!
I think it's important to start with my quick relationship with Cody Rhodes. I am inspired by seeing the journey of Cody Rhodes. It's really an aspect that I love about Cody Rhodes. I find that the whole story surrounding Dusty, his father, and the fact that he succeeded, or at least for years, wanted to accomplish what Dusty had never been able to do, especially after being robbed of it years ago. All of that aspect, I found it touching. It was touching. You could really feel how much Cody Rhodes was living it, from the bottom of his heart, so to speak. And this, I love it. For the moment, well, I love it. I find it beautiful, touching, and endearing. Just like the fact that he was part of Legacy. As a fan of Randy Orton, he still holds a special place for me, being a member of Legacy, a member of my favorite faction in WWE. And from that time, I was a fan of him. From that time, long before he became a bit of a favorite in the indies, let's say, and before he went to AEW, where he completely reinvented himself, which he did with Dio, by the way. So, I want to say that I, purely as a human being, not only respect him, but I also find him endearing in many ways. I respect the fact that he is someone who has worked hard, who has reinvented himself, who has never given up on his big dream. All of this is admirable, and it is truly beautiful. It really honors Cody Rhodes, and I wanted to say that, generally, what poses the most problems for me. When there are things that trouble me about Cody Rhodes, it's often related to the booking. Moreover, I want to say that as a wrestling fan, we can sometimes tend to confuse, in a spontaneous moment, the booking and the performer himself. While Cody Rhodes is not necessarily responsible for what he does on screen, it is sometimes due to booking decisions and the rivalries that are chosen for him. He is only following the instructions. He is just carrying out the orders, in a way. That's why, in reality, I would never hold anything against Cody Rhodes himself. It's more about the way he is sometimes used that may not please me. And precisely, how have we utilized him since WrestleMania 40? Because, whether we like it or not, that day was very, very, very significant. He not only completed his story, but he also fulfilled his quest. But he also ended the most significant modern era reign, that of Roman Reigns. Still, it was quite an event. We wondered for years who would be the chosen one, and it's Cody Rhodes. It's the American nightmare, Cody Rhodes. So, it was quite a responsibility that Cody had after WrestleMania 40, especially since he comes after a reign that broke records and truly stood the test of time, which also allowed WWE to reach new heights as a company. So, what's the verdict? And above all, do I have favorites and grievances? You can bet I do. First of all, my big concern is that when a character has such a quest through which they exist, and he is not the only one in this case, it was also somewhat the case for Jeff Hardy in 2008. Jeff Hardy also had this obsession with becoming a champion, something he had never managed to achieve. He was increasingly, let's say, haunted. Finally, he was increasingly haunted by this idea to the point of stepping up, let's say, throughout his quest, also experiencing it more and more intensely. But precisely, like a bit of Jeff Hardy, the question, and once a character has such a quest to achieve their dream of being a champion, with everything that represents for them, in this case for Cody, in relation to Dusty, regarding his revenge after being fired from WWE, or at least leaving years ago, once he has accomplished that, what do we do? What do we do? It's a bit like a video game, actually. It's when you've completed the main quest and your character, who had a mission, let's say, for a long time. Once they succeed, in principle, the video game is over. Generally. Unless, well, precisely that's a bit what we could say about Cody Rhodes. Unless there is a sequel, maybe a new mission, perhaps in reality, the mission he has accomplished, we learn that it is not completely finished. There is a twist which can happen. But my concern, in any case, let me know what you think in the comments, but I still find it legitimate because for several years he was so focused on the idea of finishing his story. We were bombarded with that, and I think that didn't help in the love for Cody Rhodes. So for some, it may have worked, but I find that WWE and Cody himself had said it, that even he, the expression finish your story, or rather my story in this case, was starting to completely annoy him. Even he had said so. And it's true that we've been constantly bombarded with this story that has dragged on for 2 years. So, to sum it up, what does all this mean? That it's true that he existed through this famous story that needs to be finished. And he himself said, just after WrestleMania 40, that a new, an even more beautiful story was about to begin. But, well, we can guess that this is a bit of smoke and mirrors. It's just giving fans something to chew on who might be a little worried. Specifically, what is the reality on the ground? What is the reality regarding Cody Rhodes since WrestleMania? Basically, what could we realistically expect? He has accomplished his quest. What could he do now? So, personally, I would say that the best thing he could do now, as the new champion, is to do what he has always dreamed of while watching John Cena at the top. Well, to really know that, you have to understand his story and feelings over the years, that for him, during his first time in WWE, it was John Cena, the face of the company. He has already mentioned in an interview that, for him, it was the ultimate source of inspiration, that it was a guy, as we all know, John Cena, a hard worker, someone who makes all the media appearances, who is present at every show, who gives his all for the success of his company, and who is truly an example well-deserved through hard work and effort. His status as champion and face of the company at the time, and Cody Rhodes has already said that it was his inspiration, by the way. A little anecdote is that at the moment he injured his pectoral, just before Hell in a Cell 2022, he was very frustrated. He mentioned that he thought a lot about John Cena, about the responsibility of being the main event of a PLE, and he told himself that he absolutely had to do like Cena, that despite the pain, people could always count on him. In the end, he had to be absent for months, but he still wrestled at Hell in a Cell, and that is all to his credit. Respect to him for that. In short, one could imagine that now the best thing for him would be to be a modern John Cena, who is present at all the shows, defending his title every month, who is, let's say, a good representative of the company in the media, who has a good image of the company, and the assessment on that, I find positive. I think that since Cody Rhodes became champion, we have seen him at all the PLEs, we have seen him almost every week. He has had several rivalries, and he still takes on his role as the face of the federation. In fact, he has even done interviews on his personal bus with different superstars. So, I want to say that he is pushing the limits, adding a bit more soul to the minimum we would expect from him, which is to highlight the other wrestlers on the roster, leveraging his notoriety and maximum exposure as champion to elevate everyone and the entire company. Basically, I want to say as much. It's funny because a few years ago, Vince McMahon basically said about Stone Cold Steve Austin in the storyline, of course, that the rattlesnake was a nightmare in terms of public relations. But I want to say that Cody Rhodes is the complete opposite. He is a dream for WWE in terms of, let's say, public relations, because it is true that Cody Rhodes, and it seems like that's a bit of the criticism I can make, but at the same time, I put myself in his shoes, I would do the same, and I understand him. It's as if he is somewhat the lapdog of the current WWE, in a way. Basically, yes, you will do this, you will do that, you will go here, you will go there. Essentially, you will do everything from A to Z that is asked of you to represent the company and do what others perhaps did less. And it's true that in this regard, he stands out, for example, from Roman Reigns. But well, once again, I certainly won't criticize Roman Reigns for that. I think he has earned his status as a part-timer. And above all, he also has a life that can largely, let's say, be listened to and helps understand why he has become a part-timer over the years. There's nothing more to say about that. On the other hand, what was only unfortunate for Roman Reigns was that he somewhat held the title hostage and that it was defended less and less frequently, unfortunately. And Cody Rhodes, at least, is not part of that. Cody Rhodes defends it, Cody Rhodes is present, does not absent himself, and I want to say, even puts in almost overtime for WWE. So, kudos to him for that. For me, that's really the most positive aspect. Just like, I still find that he has taken on another dimension than Odiroth since he became champion. If only because he is champion, even though I thought at the very beginning of his reign, and I sometimes think when he puts it on his shoulder, that this title was almost too big for him, and that it was like a symbol that his physique, his lack of build and thickness made the title look large on him. He made the belt appear larger, and it was like a symbol. Was this title and this responsibility ultimately too much for him, both physically and symbolically? But still, I find that he has taken on a new dimension, and it makes sense since we knew that whoever defeated Roman Reigns would gain an enormous stature and inherit a significant legacy and a huge boost in credibility. It makes sense. It makes sense. So, yes, I think Cody Rhodes definitely has this new dimension. For example, at the end of September 2024, seeing him alongside Roman Reigns, an extraordinary scene where they were both face to face in a stadium. I find that seeing Cody at that moment with the title facing Roman, he still has credibility. If only because he is the one who defeated Roman, and we will say that in terms of legitimacy, he will never be above what he has since WrestleMania 40. But on the other hand, what has happened since then, purely in terms of the storyline, purely in terms of entertainment. What has he told us since his triumph at the Showcase of Immortals? What has Cody Rhodes shared with us? It's simple. Let's take stock. It all started with AJ Styles at Backlash. It was in France. And AJ Styles was a good illustration of what was both, for me, the positive and the negative of his reign. Yes, it was a match with spectacle, action, and adrenaline. But, on the other hand, in terms of psychology, story, and suspense, there was hardly anything. It's true that we obviously suspected he wasn't going to lose to AJ Styles, and that's also the problem with many of Cody Rhodes' title defenses. We suspected that he would never. His status as the one who dethroned Roman Reigns would be lost in a PLE. That isn't even a major PLE. So there wasn't really any suspense, and it also lacked a bit of story. Even though Styles, I remember that the story was somewhat that Cody Rhodes had to prove himself as a champion. That's true. But still, I found it a bit lacking. Moreover, I thought it was a shame that at the time, we didn't go for a triple threat instead. Against AJ Styles and LA Knight, who faced AJ Styles at WrestleMania 40. It's a shame not to have a triple threat match, by the way. I think this matchup, I would still like at some point to have a Cody Rhodes versus LA Knight match. Why? Because they both have a bit of that status. So, it is true that this status might perhaps fade a little over time. In terms of popularity, they are somewhat part of those current wrestlers. A bit of this new generation, of all those who have succeeded them. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, even though in terms of age, they are very close, all these wrestlers, but let's say they somewhat represent the WWE of Triple H, these wrestlers. Cody Rhodes is the face of the famous Triple H era. Just as one might say about LA Knight, he has been completely highlighted since Triple H took the reins. And in a way, he represents both babyfaces, at least two of the most popular babyfaces among current fans. And I think it would be interesting to see the choice. Well, I suspect it would probably be Cody Rhodes, but you never know. In terms of suspense, Cody Rhodes against LA Knight would be intriguing. But anyway, I would have liked to see a triple threat at Backlash because I already found the matchup of Cody Rhodes and Jay. The style is a bit too weak to be exciting in itself. And I think it would have gained a lot from having a third character in the story. And so, they had a rematch later at Clash at the Castle. Well, at least that's one criticism I can't make, since there was a stipulation, there was a high quit match between the two. And I have to say that, for example, regarding Roman Reigns' reign, one big regret I had as a huge fan of Roman and wanting to see him defend his title brilliantly and to really witness a truly perfect reign is that I found it often lacked stipulation. Roman Reigns' reign, for example. Regarding I Quit, my little wrestling fantasy, if we can call it that, was to see an I Quit match between Roman Reigns and John Cena, for example. Can you just imagine the suspense there would have been? John Cena, who is Mr. Never Give Up, who never gives up, against Roman Reigns, who is almost invincible. It would have been huge. And at least, with Cody Rhodes, there was a stipulation right from the beginning of his reign. On the other hand, a disappointment that occurred quite early in this reign is the match against Logan Paul for King and Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia. It's true that at that moment, when it comes to a show in Saudi Arabia, it often means basically we need stars. So I was expecting that we might have a Cody Rhodes versus John Cena in Saudi Arabia, especially since I was thinking that maybe if Roman Reigns is not there and The Rock is filming, then this might be one of the only major stars available, at least more than Roman Reigns and The Rock, to still offer a sellable match and a big draw in Saudi Arabia. But in the end, it was Logan Paul, who is still the mega star of social media, as he calls himself, that's for sure. But for me, it illustrated once again that it wasn't going well. Because indeed, the match itself was filled with action, once again, packed with spots, filled with moments that make the fans chant, "This is awesome." But purely in terms of storytelling, I was very disappointed that we didn't have the double stakes. Since we knew that Logan Paul was the United States champion at that time, there was even talk of putting everything on the line, doing a winner-take-all, which I would have found much more interesting, potentially having Cody Rhodes as both the WWE and US champion, which would have been quite something. I would really have liked to see that, the American Nightmare as the United States champion. I'm sure it could have been good, and then he would have been even more the driving force and the golden boy of WWE. So it's a shame to have removed that stake, especially since it was being dangled in front of us. So I don't understand why they did that. In short, once again, a match that may entertain in the moment with action, holds and spectacle is quickly seen and quickly forgotten. It's true, frankly. And that's why you see the importance of a story, more psychology, more. So, despite everything, there was still some psychology, but it perhaps lacked more memorable elements, at least in this build-up and in this match. I find that this match wasn't really that significant after all. And in the end, we are already at that moment, in the summer. And we can consider that from this period. He has focused more on the bloodline, knowing that he has a huge history with the bloodline, Cody Rhodes. He is still, let's say, the ultimate opponent of the bloodline for years. Ultimately, let's say since WrestleMania 39, in reality. Because from that time, he was saying that his main objective, in addition to obviously finishing his story and being champion, of course, was also to make sure to, let's say, to reduce and eliminate the power and control of the bloodline over WWE, to free WWE from Roman Reigns and the bloodline. So, we can say that he was somewhat the main antagonist of the bloodline. And then, the proof is that he faced Roman Reigns twice at WrestleMania. He was often involved with the bloodline, and he frequently proclaimed himself as the one who would basically putting an end to the bloodline, so they were revisiting that, but in a new and still interesting way, since in the meantime it was Solo Sikoa who had, let's say, he took on another dimension, even if it was also a bit of self-proclamation. Him saying, yes, I am the new chief of the tribe, in summary. And believe it or not, there was a story. There was a story after all. This idea that Solo Sikoa wanted to succeed where Roman Reigns had not. Where Roman Reigns had failed at WrestleMania 40, the new chief of the tribe wanted to show that as the new leader, he was capable of doing better than the one whose place he has, let's say, taken. And he did it, initially, since at Money in the Bank, in a tag team match, he still managed to pin Cody Rhodes. Note, Cody Rhodes has already been pinned during this reign. That is quite significant. Therefore, it highlighted Solo Sikoa. But At SummerSlam, Cody defeated him. And above all, it marked the return of Roman Reigns. What is, let's say, at least by the fall of 2024, the next big chapter, we imagine, of Cody Rhodes' reign is that Roman Reigns has returned and there is a trilogy to be made in a completely different situation where Cody Rhodes is now the champion who must defend his title against the returning and intense Roman Reigns. There is a lot of suspense at this level. But anyway, there had been Solo Sikoa, SummerSlam, and then there was Kevin Owens in a somewhat different, for sure, from previous matches with a Kevin Owens who might have been a bit torn. The fact of seeing him being buddy-buddy with Roman Reigns could spark some desires in Kevin Owens to shut Cody up and say to him, "But what are you doing? Why are you getting close to Roman Reigns? He has been our enemy for years." There is a semblance of storytelling at this level, that's for sure. In any case, he defended it against Kevin Owens in Berlin. But once again, and this is my main criticism of this reign, it's mostly just filler. That's true. Honestly, AJ Styles, Logan Paul, Kevin Owens, the solo chapter, which in reality is a highway to the next chapter, which is Roman against Cody III. And above all, what we notice is that it's not just filler, but moreover, it is primarily about him and his reign, the backdrop of the bloodline, and the story of the bloodline. Basically, Cody Rhodes is the champion, and in a way, he represents, it's as if he symbolizes what the bloodline succeeds or fails at over the months. I don't know if I'm being clear. Let me be very clear about this. Basically, I think that the story, in reality, when it comes to Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa, is not so much about Cody's reign. It's more about Solo Sikoa claiming to be the new chief of the tribe, pretending to dethrone Roman Reigns from his status and take his place. So, in reality, we are being told more about the story between Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns than about Solo Sikoa against Cody Rhodes, basically. Cody is somewhat the pretext and backdrop that the bloodline uses to essentially tell us about these games of, let's say, succession, these power struggles, this war between Roman and the other Solo sequel, the new bloodline. Basically, I find that Cody Rhodes is mainly, well, a backdrop in this story. And the proof, once again, is with Roman Reigns, who has returned to team up with Cody Rhodes to fight against the bloodline. Once again, Cody Rhodes is a tool in, let's say, the storyline surrounding the bloodline. It's true, and it's a shame. It's a shame. But can he aspire to something better, actually? And on that, I still say yes. I still say yes. Because let's project ourselves now towards what could be great in Cody Rhodes' reign. So all of this is from a perspective where his reign lasts a long time, where I don't know exactly how long, but at least several months, possibly even until WrestleMania. Well, it's true that everything I'm going to mention might not have enough time until WrestleMania, at least if you want to do it right. In any case, I think that there are several rivalries that could really completely change everything in Cody's reign and make it much more interesting, with a much more unique and stronger identity, and even simply be more exciting to follow than it has been so far. Because aside from providing us with matches and action, and aside from serving as a backdrop for the intra-bloodline stories, Cody Rhodes and his reign haven't amounted to much so far. But that could change. As a fan of certain aspects of Cody Rhodes and a critic of his booking, I think it would just take a different approach to booking him, to make him much more interesting. Example, well, for starters, it's certain that when we have the trilogy against Roman Reigns, when that happens, we can consider that there will be huge suspense and high stakes. There will be a real new story, a real new dynamic between the two men that we haven't had until now. A completely different situation from WrestleMania 39 and WrestleMania 40. So I think this is almost a guarantee of entertainment, suspense, and good things for Cody Rhodes' reign. Of course, this could also lead to his defeat, and if he loses, and as his reign ends with the trilogy against Roman, I think to myself, there we will really have confirmation, once and for all, that Cody Rhodes was only there to fill time, to occupy airtime and people's minds while waiting for Roman Reigns to return. And he ultimately turned out to be just WWE's plan B, waiting for Roman Reigns to return. That would be quite a negative message about what Cody Rhodes is really worth. As for Cody Rhodes, well, anyway, I really want to see Cody Rhodes against Randy Orton. It's one of the matchups I want to see the most. I've already talked about all their past with Legacy. Basically, what I think about this situation is that Randy Orton needs to become him again. It's in this role that he is the best, that he has always been, and Cody Rhodes would be the ideal opponent for a Randy Orton. It would be a great story, Randy Orton, the former mentor, coming to psychologically torment Cody. There is really a true story to tell, but I've already talked about that. Just as he could also form a faction together after a while, Cody could also become him. For me, he has often behaved like a champion during his reign, especially since his return to WWE in 2022. It's just the overall style, the outfits, the fact that sometimes I use somewhat sophisticated words. I present myself a bit as a guy, cultivated, intellectual. In short, he sometimes has all the behavior of an heel. In fact, just like in some matches, we somewhat forgot, but he had defeated Brock Lesnar, for example, back then, by removing a coin ring protection, which was clearly a heel maneuver. In short, I would also like, and this is one of Cody Rhodes' great strengths, for him to have a storyline with a former All Elite wrestling talent. Let's not forget that he was one of the founders of the competing promotion to WWE, and naturally, any former AEW wrestler who would find themselves facing Cody Rhodes would have a history. There would be a backstory. I obviously think of MJF. A Cody Rhodes versus MJF match in WWE could be great. They have that history in AEW, so I would really like to see that. Just like I would really like to see John Cena against Cody Rhodes. I'm telling you, when John Cena was at the top and was the face of WWE, Cody Rhodes was Stardust. Cody Rhodes was Dashing Cody Rhodes. Basically, he was stuck in a supporting role, let's say. And we could tell a story where he wants to take his revenge regarding that whole period. And yeah, and to free himself from the frustrations he may have felt seeing Cena at the top while he was struggling, basically. We'll see. Let's hope that Cody Rhodes finally becomes the champion he deserves to be, and especially that his reign lives up to the long quest that led him here. But the potential is there. Let's keep hope.
We can say that this topic raises a lot of questions. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay in the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?